In 2021, the Denver Broncos had one of the best defenses in the NFL. They were second in points per game allowed with 18.9, and they were ninth in the NFL in yards per game allowed, only giving up 326.1 yards per game. But with the departure or the firing of former head coach Vic Fangio, how good is this defense going to be without him? Well, it probably was the best thing for Denver to go ahead and get somebody who was from his coaching tree. Their new defensive coordinator, I'm not going to try to pronounce his name. It's just one of those names that I know how to pronounce. It just doesn't roll off the tongue right. So don't get upset at me. Get mad at the public school system in Florida that has failed me for my inability to properly be able to pronounce certain words, but we're just going to call him Coach EJ because that's what the majority of the Denver Broncos players refer to him as. So Coach EJ it is. So Coach EJ has spent time on the Rams coaching staff over the last couple of seasons. He also has spent time under Vic Fangio on his staff when he was with the 49ers. So the scheme and defense will not be all that different, which is a plus. There have been a couple of Denver Broncos players who have spoke out about this, saying that the terminology is just slightly different and the verbiage, but from the play calling and the schematic side of things haven't really changed all that much. So with the defense pretty much staying the same, it's only right to expect that the defense should still be able to have the success that they had last season. Now, one thing that we do have to also take into account is that, the play calling might be a little bit different. So just because that the defense isn't really changing too much, we still have to see just how good of a play caller Coach EJ is. But I think it's fair to assume that this defense definitely should be able to pick up from where it left off last year. If anything, it just should just see a slight reduction in productivity. My biggest question is going to be, is the third down defense going to improve? And when you're talking about the third down defense, you have to ask yourself, how good is your team at getting pressure on the quarterback, right? Because the majority of teams who are good at getting off the field on third down are able to get consistent pressure on the quarterback. Last year, Denver was 28th in the NFL in third down defense. They allowed teams to convert on third down 44.89% of the time. And they were 18th in sacks per game. Now, when you look at some of the teams that were really good at getting off the field on third down, such as the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Minnesota Vikings, the Rams, and the Titans, one thing that they all had in common was that they were top 5 in the NFL in sacks per game. So if you can get consistent pressure on the QB, more times than not, you're going to be really good at getting off the field in third down situations, because most of the time, teams in third down situations are put in obvious passing situations. You're either in third and medium or third and long situations, which is probably either third and 6 or maybe third and 8 is probably the league average there. So for this to improve, you're banking on Bradley Chubb being able to stay healthy. If Bradley Chubb can stay healthy, that's going to help out. You also signed former Dallas Cowboys pass rusher Randy Gregory. You do have Draymond Jones, who is coming off a 5.5 sack performance from 2021. And then that leads me to my next question is, can Randy Gregory become a double-digit pass rusher, a double-digit sack pass rusher, I should add? Because during his time in Dallas, we've only really seen him have more than 6 sacks. Never. That pretty much has been his career high. Now, last year, you probably could make the argument and say that, well, JT, he only played in 12 games, so if he would have played the whole entire season, he probably would have came close to having 10 sacks, which I can understand that. But if you're paying somebody this kind of money, you're expecting not only a double-digit sack guy, but you're also expecting somebody who is basically Pro Bowl caliber. Also, what is the depth that Denver has? Because with the injury history of Bradley Chubb, you definitely don't want to handcuff yourself to him. And we all can't predict injuries. However, when you have somebody that does have a tendency of being able to get injured more times than not, you definitely would love to have a solid backup just in case. So where's the depth there at the pass rush position is my question. I'm not saying that they don't have it. I'm just wondering, where is it? At cornerback, your secondary is pretty good. Patrick Surtain probably was the best rookie cornerback in the NFL last year. It's only right to expect him to continue to improve. He'll probably end up becoming a top 5 cornerback this season. You got Ronald Darby there. Kwan Williams is slated to be your starting slot corner this year. So I think your cornerback position is pretty okay. Even though I felt I would have liked for Denver to upgrade a little bit when it came from Ronald Darby. I don't think he's bad, but I kind of would have loved them to pair Patrick Surtain up with another good corner. But I don't think their cornerback position is too bad. I think it's pretty solid. Safety, you bring back Kareem Jackson. You have Justin Simmons there. So that's a really good safety tandem. Inside linebacker, you got Joel. You got Jonas Griffith, who was one of the more bigger surprises on Denver's defense last year. This is somebody who was kind of traded or brought in to be a special teams guy. He ended up being very good, really good against the run, great in pass coverage. So there are many Denver Broncos fans who feel that Jonas Griffith is going to be in for a breakout season. So for this defense, I think that this most likely will be a top 10 unit. And this defense is going to be better than what it was last season, simply for the fact that the offense last year wasn't great. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't great, as I mentioned in my Broncos offensive breakdown. Make sure that you guys go ahead and check out that segment. But the offense has some times where it really couldn't get anything going. And when you have that, and I say this all the time, it's getting kind of redundant, but I have to keep on reinstilling this to people. You know, your defense sometimes has a tendency to underperform when your offense isn't great and your offense can't sustain drives. When you have an offense that's going 3 and out and can't really stay on the field all that long, it puts your defense in situations where they end up being on the field more plays than what they have to. And when your defense is on the field for more plays, guys get tired, they get gassed, and that's how you end up giving up big plays. Last year, Denver's offense was average, right? So with the addition of Russell Wilson, and you bring in head coach Nathaniel Hackett, an offensive-minded head coach who's going to be calling the plays, we expect the offense to be really good. And with the offense being better than what it was last season, that's going to help out the defense because they're going to be on the field for way less snaps, which is going to give them more time to recover on the sidelines. And this should help improve their overall performance. And I expect Bradley Chubb to end up bouncing back to his former self when he was putting up double-digit sack numbers and when he was a Pro Bowler. So I think now the Broncos defense should still be a top 10 defense this year, despite the fact that they lost Vic Fangio. It was really smart of Coach Hackett to bring in somebody coming from that similar coaching tree who has a lot of familiarity with what Vic Fangio loves to do. And of course, Coach EJ is probably going to add his own spin on things. So it's only right to expect this defense to be pretty good. May not be a top 5 defense like what it was last season, but it shouldn't be no worse than top 10.